Hello and welcome to another podcast from Odell Technology. Today we're joined by Alastair Hick, CEO at Uniseed.
So, hello, I'm Alastair Hick. I'm the CEO of Uniseed, which is a venture-style fund based in Australia. So, my background is 25 years in university research commercialisation, starting off in the UK, 8 years there, including at University of Cambridge, at Cambridge Enterprise. And then in end of 2006, I moved to Australia. Spent 19 years at Monash University, which is Australia's largest university based in Melbourne, and developed and grew the commercialisation or tech transfer program there, piloted and developed entrepreneurship programs and accelerator programs, and developed an investment program for spin-outs and startups coming out of the university. The end of 2026, I left Monash and joined Uniseed as CEO. Uniseed is an Australian venture company that is been originally set up in 2000, so we've been around for over 25 years. Set up by 2 universities, but now owned by 9 universities plus CSIRO, which is Australia's public sector research organisation. We invest in any spin-outs coming out of our research partners, so the universities who fund us, and we have a number of different investment vehicles in order to do that. So we go all the way from doing very early pre-seed investment, where we might write a check for 200k Aussie dollars, all the way up to about $15 to $20 million, which we would do through our partner with one of our superannuation funds, UniSuper.
Okay, so Alastair, what do you want to change at Uniseed now you're there, and how will you measure success?
Yeah, so Uniseed's been around for 25 years, as I said, and has been successful in helping over 70 companies get up and running, invested in those, brought more than $1.5 billion of additional capital into those companies, led to about 15 exits, with hopefully some more to come, and really helped change the commercialization landscape in our partner universities, so that they now believe that it is possible to set up successful spin-out companies coming out of their university research. So that's what we've done well. However, where we need to go next, there's a few different things we need to focus on. So one of the challenges that we face in Australia is trying to move things faster. We have I always talk about speed. So how do we get faster decisions made? How do we get whether that's faster to yes or faster to no? But we've got to start moving faster. Australia is a relatively small market, and with a relatively finite talent pool. And so where we've got world-class research, which we do, we have five of my university partners are ranked in the top 50 in the world. They each spend between 1.2 and 1.4 billion Aussie dollars on research every year. So these are huge organizations doing great research. So we don't have a lack of problem with great research to work with. What often happens in Australia is we don't move quickly enough. So we might have some scientific breakthrough, and then we're looking to put that into a spin-out company. But often what we see is it takes too long, and these are obviously need to be globally competitive. So if we don't move fast enough, we're going to fall behind our competitors, whether they are based in the US, Europe, Asia, China, wherever it may be, where people are able to put more resource, whether that's capital or human resource, onto these opportunities quicker. So we need to both move faster and deploy our capital faster in the first instance.
Okay, so where does university commercialization most often become stuck?
Yeah, so I talk about mindset, and I've been talking for the last few years about we need a mindset shift, and what we've been doing, and I did this when I was on the other side of the fence in the university world, and I'm saying the same thing now. We need a mindset shift, which is about how can we do things, how can we make things happen. We have a very often in university commercialization, we try and optimize every single part of every single deal. And I see that way too often. And as a result, what should take 3 months takes 6, 9, 12 months, often the 9 to 12 month period. And as a result, you've got that technology sitting on the table, going nowhere for a 6 to 9 month period. Not only that, it means that you're not working on the other 5 things that have come in the door during that time that you should also be working on. So we do see way too much of people trying to optimize everything about every last deal. We are starting to see some changes. So for example, one of my partner universities, University of Melbourne, has introduced some standard terms for their spin-out companies, which is starting to really help in terms of getting things out the door faster. And there are discussions amongst both the investor community and the larger universities about developing a framework to help in that process.
Okay, very well done. Sense. What for you separates excellent university research from an investable company?
Yeah, so I sort of always start from is this breakthrough research? Is this it? And we're genuinely looking for breakthrough research, and we're lucky enough in Australia that we do have enough genuinely globally competitive breakthrough research. So that's the sort of bare minimum of what we need. Obviously, we'll look at all the IP and things like that, and that's taken as read. We'll work that through. Usually, universities are pretty good in our experience about protecting and understanding IP. What we then want to do, we'll have our own view as to the potential, but actually, the first thing I want to do is get out and talk to people, get out to the market. If we're not engaging with the market, then we really don't understand whether this opportunity has got real potential. One of my favorite questions is, what happens if we look to give someone some funding, whatever stage it's at? So what happens next? Okay, so we do this and it goes really well. What happens next? And who has validated that? So who outside of this room, so somebody out in the market, whether that's an investor or a corporate, has said, this is what we want to see. So I really encourage, and when we're talking to our potential founders, get out into the market. And it's one of the things, interestingly enough, that when I was helping and set up entrepreneurial programs at some of the entrepreneurial programs at Monash, that really taught me about getting out into the market, engaging with the market, doing it very, very early. And often you see that in the sort of tech startup world. That's just how people do it. You don't see it often in the university as often and as well done in the university commercialization world. It's like, we're going to build a better mousetrap and it's going to be amazing. And then we're going to go out and show the world. You need to get out there and talk about your better mousetrap.
So is the main constraint shortage of capital? Is it experience management, or is it investable opportunity? What is the biggest problem you've got?
It's definitely not investable opportunity. Okay, so I'll start from that. So so I talk about getting and I was talking about this last night at a forum. It's about getting the right tech, and I say we've got the right tech. Working out where the commercial opportunity might be. So where do we need to take that? And then bringing together the right people, and that could be it's both. It's founders, it's experienced executives, it's experts, whether that could be regulatory or technical or clinical or whatever it is. And you don't necessarily need that. That's not about full-time stuff. It's like, how do we make sure we're on the right path? Okay, so bringing the right expertise around the table. And honestly, if you do that, certainly in Australia at the moment, um, if you've done those things, finding early stage capital, so pre-seed and seed capital, is you'll be able to do it. Okay, if you've got those things, good tech, good commercial opportunity, and you've got most of the right bits of the team, bearing in mind at an early stage you might not have addressed all of that, uh, you'll be able to get early stage capital. We do face a bit of a challenge once we get to sort of either larger Series A or B and beyond rounds. So once we start to get, when you're raising sort of 30 to 50 plus million, then we start to get some challenges about access to capital.
Okay, so what evidence do you need before investing in a medtech, a biotech, a digital health company?
So evidence of clinical need. So what's this going to do for the patient? And obviously, that's going to vary by whatever. Obviously, digital health is quite different to therapeutics. It's quite different to medtech. But where's the clinical benefit? What is the current best practice, or is the current best treatment option, and how is this going to be fundamentally better for the patient? What's it going to change? And then what evidence do we have to back that up? I'll come back to we need evidence, right? And that isn't just from the team. I want to hear it from other, it could be later stage investors, it could be big pharma or big biotech, it could be larger medtech companies. If you can, solve this problem, in medtech, it can often be clinical, so that's part of it. But it doesn't. That just demonstrates clinical need. It doesn't demonstrate that it's commercially viable. So just because the clinician says yes, if you can make this, it would be great for my patients to do this, doesn't make it necessarily a commercially viable product. So we need to then try and validate the commercial side of things. I think one of the unique things about Uniseed is because we have different pots of money, our early stage capital that comes from the universities, we're able to take more risk. So we could say, right, we actually don't quite understand the commercial angle on this. We can see that there probably is. And so it could be that a chunk of the first money is actually to really understand the commercial opportunity, as well as doing probably some technical development as well. But we're able to take that risk because we can operate. We effectively have a dual mandate from our university LPs to both make good investments, but actually to help on that journey. So we can take a more risk than we do with our later stage funds, and that works really quite well as long as you work out what are you trying to address. Because often coming out of the university, it's like, we'll do the technical stuff. And it's like, yes, we know you're going to be able to do the technical stuff, but actually often it's the commercial questions that need answering early on.
Absolutely, reimbursement. So can you give me an example of a technology that you've had to substantially reshape before it became investable?
Yeah, that's a good question. The one that comes to mind isn't actually medtech. It's in an energy storage space, but it was. But we often see. So I'll describe the type of technology that
Yes.
we have the biggest challenges. They're both the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities, which are often some form of platform technology. Okay, so you have something that enables you to do something really interesting. So it could be a material that you could use for some form of implant, for example. And then it's a case of, okay, so but then you start to say, actually, where is the market? Because usually from the university side, they've developed it for a particular purpose because of their research interests, not necessarily because that's the right commercial market. So we often have to look at those types of opportunities and take a big step back and say, okay, so yes, we understand that there's an opportunity in this space, and we can validate that, but we need to understand whether there are other. Is that the best market entry strategy? So, have we identified the right use case, the right indication in terms of therapeutics, etc. So we will often spend quite a lot of time at that early stage trying to understand where to focus the development efforts on. And again, coming back to the Uniseed model, our early stage capital is able to do that, and we find that very, very useful. But I think the other thing I'll say is actually in Australia in the past 5 to 10 years, all the big universities now have access to some form of proof of concept type funding or other supports for their early stage companies, even pre-spin out, that often we can sit down with them and say, look, this is really interesting, and so we'll sit down with them, and they may well have the resources themselves now to be able to go and answer those, bring in an expert, a consultant, somebody to work up a case, whatever it might be. And so we find that really useful working with our partners. And then they might come back in 6-9 months' time when they've done that work and they've then got an investable opportunity.
Okay, so what should a researcher do if they've got an interesting idea and they want to approach you? What should they do in the next 30 or 60 days? How should they approach it?
Yeah, so we're basically, it's an open door policy. They can come through their university commercialisation office. Many of the universities that we work with also have a new ventures stroke investment team, and often they may well be talking to those. So either of those routes are absolutely fine, but also just we get some researchers who'll come directly to us, and that's fine. We'll loop back into the university system and the commercialization team and understand, that the IP is all sorted and that the university is supportive of this opportunity. But we don't want to say you have to come in through this route, although most things will come in through the commercialization offices and have had some workup, because now the commercialization officers, as I say, do have some resource that they can put to work that can help develop the opportunities.
Alastair, what is it you'd like to talk about? What is it you're passionate about?
Yeah. So there is so much great opportunity in Australia.
Yes.
The technology is amazing. People are great at making things happen, getting things done. They don't get too worked up about, everything. It's like, how can we make things done, make things happen? I think so there is so much opportunity, so much great technology, and we see that when we speak with, when we take our spin outs overseas, once they've reached a certain point, the feedback is always, love the tech. There's no issues with that. So that's the bit that is exciting. I think the other thing is that there's been a massive change. Say, I've been in Australia for 20 years. There's been a massive change in the whole ecosystem that's supporting all of this. So as I say, universities will run programs. They'll have, whether that's entrepreneurial programs, accelerators, those sorts of things. They've got supports. They do pretty much all of them do some form of very early stage direct investing as well, working often alongside us, which means that we can put a bit more money to work a bit sooner. So all of that has changed remarkably. There's a lot more early stage investors in Australia, not loads yet doing deep tech, sort of in its broadest sense, increasing numbers, but it's way more than it was a decade ago. It's just changed out of all recognition. And then the last piece is actually, two other pieces. We've got a lot more interest from researchers and entrepreneurs saying, we see the opportunities, we want to make something happen. And then the more examples there are, the more people see what's possible. And then the final piece is a lot more interest globally in both the technology and the spin outs coming out of Australia. So we're seeing a lot more interest in what's going on. And I think there's a real opportunity to connect that better globally. And so that's something that we'd like to be doing, going forward over the next couple of years.
Should Australian spin-outs target global markets immediately or prove themselves in their own home market first?
They need to. Australian spin-outs need to be certainly in all the medical and life science related areas, need to be looking globally from day one. So they need to have that as their objective. Certainly in some areas like digital, it might be that they start locally. So digital health might be something where they're going locally first of all. Therapeutics, global from day zero, literally, and trying to take advantage of what Australia brings. And I think actually for all areas, it's like what they need to be doing is looking for thinking globally about global markets from day one, and then working out what's the competitive advantage for us about coming from Australia. So is that access to early stage clinical trials? Is it access to very diverse patient populations that are part of a world-class healthcare system that are relatively easy to access? Is it whatever it might be? What are the key advantages about Australia, and how can you use those at an early stage to get yourself moving as quickly as possible to generate some momentum, and then hopefully be able to raise the capital that you'll need as you start to, go down that very expensive development path.
Okay, I couldn't agree more. I think Australia is excellent at stage 1 and stage 2 clinical trials. We excel at that, and I think that's something that I know many companies are traveling around the world right now trying to promote and improve. Tell me, you've got 8 members of Uniseed.
So we've actually got, the way we work, we've got 5 large universities and CSIRO, and then we've got a consortium of 4 smaller universities. So actually it's 10 members altogether, and the 4 smaller mid-sized universities got together to act in a similar way as our other partners, because everybody comes in effectively on the same terms. We found that really interesting because they may not have the same quantity of research and but they do have some sort of, each one has its own specialist areas where they've got some really exceptional researchers doing some really interesting things that is highly commercializable and often hasn't had a lot of attention from investors in the past. So that's proving very interesting for us, accessing for those.
Let's say a European or US-based university has some interesting intellectual property that they need it developed. Would your organization be partnered in something like that?
So typically what we would do in that sort of situation, we probably wouldn't be directly partnered, but we do a lot. I mean, Australian universities and Australian researchers are highly collaborative, globally focused. There are a lot of Australian researchers are they're both, Australia is a nation of immigrants, and there are a lot of people, whether they've been born in the UK, China, US, wherever, in the Australian university systems. And they often have very strong links back to other countries. So there's a lot of global collaboration, full stop. So we do see a reasonable amount of that. If someone came to us, we could probably point them in the direction of relevant world-class researchers in some of our institutions and say, go and have a word, go and speak to these people at this university or this institution, because we're lucky that we get to see all the great things coming out of some world-class universities, which makes the job fun.
I think you have a fantastic job. I think you're a very fortunate human being, but a hardworking. So I thank you very much again for your time. and all the very best of luck for the future. And I hope to be talking to you again in 6 months' time when you will have completed a number of spin-offs and you'll have some other interesting conversations about interesting opportunities. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Stephen.